I've never been the kind of man who burns something down just to watch it glow. But the morning they tore apart the last thing my father ever built, I came closer than I'd like to admit. The HOA called it a safety hazard. I called it the last 3 summers of my dad's life. And what they didn't count on was me deciding to stop playing nice. Monday morning, 8:15 a.m., I pulled into my driveway thinking about invoices and fuel schedules. Just another day running Carter Marine Logistics, the water transport business my father built from nothing but grit and a second-hand tugboat. Instead, I found 2 contractors with chainsaws cutting through the wooden bridge that connected my property to Mirror Lake. Not just any bridge, the bridge. Dad and I built it plank by plank before the chemo started taking more than it gave back. Every board hand-selected. Every joint fitted the way he taught me: measure twice, cut once, don't rush what you want to last. And there it was, splintering into the water while Martha Crowley stood there with a clipboard like she was supervising landscaping. Her hair didn't move in the breeze. Neither did her smile. "Perfect timing, Daniel," she said, voice sharp as a file. "Emergency permits were filed over the weekend. Structural concerns, community impact, it's unsafe. Frankly, it's an eyesore." An eyesore. Each scream of the chainsaw felt like it was cutting through bone. I stood there frozen, while pieces of my father's last project slid into the lake. The worst part wasn't the money, though. Losing direct water access was going to cost me plenty. It was watching the last physical memory of him sink into muddy water like it never mattered. But this wasn't about safety, it never was. For over a year, Martha had been pitching her Grand Marina project, 40 premium slips, clubhouse, restaurant, managed access to the lake. Translation fees, control, oversight. My bridge was the only independent commercial access point left. As long as I had it, I didn't need her marina. "You'll rent dock space like everyone else," she told me, voice sweet as syrup and twice as sticky. "That's how we run things here." I wanted to tell her exactly where she could run things. But sometimes the smartest move isn't to swing, it's to step back and let someone think they've already won. That night I met my friend Grant at Murphy's Bar downtown. He works for the Port Authority, knows more about water politics than most people realize. Over 2 beers and bad jukebox music, he leaned in and said something that changed everything. "Granite Shore's selling the dam," he said. I blinked. The dam. Maintenance costs. EPA upgrades. They want out. If Martha gets wind of it, she'll buy it. And if she owns the marina and the dam, she controls the lake. I drove home thinking about that current flowing under where my bridge used to stand. I'd been focused on wood and nails. But the real power wasn't the bridge. It was the water. Water management is just logistics with better paperwork. Systems. Pressure points. Authority. I spent 3 straight nights buried in filings and compliance codes. Granite Shore was drowning in regulatory upgrades, $200,000 just to stay current. I called Calvin Ross, an independent dam engineer. Played it casual, said I was researching water management for business planning. Calvin loved to talk shop. "Dam operators have discretion," he told me. "File proper notices, follow monitoring protocols, you can adjust water levels for maintenance. It's about documentation and timing." Documentation, timing. I set up Carter Water Management LLC. Kept my name quiet on the front end. Granite Shore was eager to sell fast. 2 weeks later, I owned the infrastructure that controlled every waterfront view on Mirror Lake, including Martha's $7 million mansion. That's when the twist really hit. Calvin called one night, voice tight. Martha's been contacting engineering firms, asking about acquisition procedures. She'd been planning to buy the dam after her investor showcase used new marina cash flow to fund it. She wanted full ecosystem control. Suddenly, my move didn't feel like revenge. It felt like defense. Her big investor showcase was set for July 14th. Guided mansion tours. Drone footage at 10 a.m. when the light hits the water just right. Pristine lake views, perfect reflections. I filed maintenance notice exactly 72 hours before. All legal, all documented. Bottom outlet inspection and cleaning. Environmental oversight. County approval stamped and posted. July 14th, 5:30 a.m. Calvin and I stood in the dam control room. Monitoring systems live, wildlife displacement teams ready, everything by the book. When the valves opened, the lake began to fall. By 8 a.m., it had dropped 2 feet. Boats shifted awkwardly against docks. By 9, muddy banks were emerging like secrets nobody wanted photographed. At 9:40, I drove to the lakefront. Chaos. Investors in pressed suits standing on decks that now overlooked what looked like a drained swimming pool. One woman barked into her phone, "This is not what we were promised." Real estate agents whispering panic. A developer climbed into his luxury SUV and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Call us when you figure out your water situation." By 10 a.m., the drone operator had packed up. News crews showed up by 10:30. From pristine waterfront to mud flats overnight, one reporter said while filming a yacht sitting crooked in exposed lakebed. Martha stormed toward me later that afternoon, hair finally out of place. "You destroyed us," she hissed. I held up the stamped county approval. Routine infrastructure maintenance. Fully compliant. She stared at the paperwork like it was written in a language she'd never bothered to learn. That evening's emergency HOA meeting felt like a public trial. Same neighbors who once nodded along with her marina plans now demanded explanations. Canceled sales, mortgage reassessments, millions evaporating. When she finally asked me to speak, the room went silent. "The maintenance was legal and necessary," I said, "but I'm prepared to discuss resolution for the wrongful destruction of my father's bridge." I laid out the terms. Public apology, $250,000 in damages, full funding for a memorial bridge, formal recognition of seasonal maintenance schedules, mandatory disclosure language on future property listings regarding water level variation. Shock rippled through the room. Every future sale would now depend on published dam operations, transparency over fantasy. And then I dropped the final piece. During low water access, I completed construction of a private cargo ramp system. Independent access. No marina required. Martha's entire leverage had been smoke. By the end of the night, she signed. Cameras outside, residents furious. Her apology recorded on video. Settlement approved. 1 month later, I stood on the new Carter Memorial Bridge watching the lake shimmer under normal levels. Calvin had helped recreate the hand-fitted craftsmanship Dad loved, stronger, modern, built to last. A brass plaque read, "Built with precision, maintained with integrity, connecting past and future." Neighbors showed up for the dedication. Even Mrs. Henderson, who once backed Martha's marina dreams, shook my hand and said, "Your father would be proud." Martha resigned by an 87% vote. The marina project died. Her mansion sold months later for nearly $3 million less than she'd hoped, listing required to disclose seasonal water management schedules. Funny how the same property value argument she used to justify destroying my bridge ended up haunting her own sale. Here's the thing I didn't expect. I thought revenge would feel loud, explosive. Instead, it felt quiet, like setting a broken bone back into place. I learned something watching all that play out. Power isn't about who talks the loudest at meetings. It's about understanding the systems nobody else bothers to study. It's about patience, about knowing that control without comprehension is just arrogance waiting to collapse. Martha wanted control of land, people, water. She never understood the water. And sometimes the quiet guy really does hold the most important lever. So here's what I keep thinking about. Was I justified? Or did I cross a line using perfectly legal authority to make a point? At what moment does self-defense start looking like retaliation? If someone bulldozed the last thing your father ever built, how far would you go? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me where you draw the line between justice and revenge. And if you've ever had to stand up against someone who thought they ran the whole show.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.